right? If you are sitting there and you are not full-throatedly, wholeheartedly condemning what Hamas did, then you don't care about human rights. You just want it to happen to the bad guys and want the good guys for it to not to happen, whoever you think the good guys and the bad guys are. I don't like, you're showing your whole ass, and we won't forget. I won't
Yeah.
forget the people who did not, again, full-throatedly condemn this. I will not forget you.
If this is what decolonization looks like, if decolonizing America involves, you know, like people killing other people, brutally them, breaking their bones, parading them around, showing them off, right? If that's what decolonization is, decolonization, all right? Colonize everywhere. This shit's ridiculous. It needs to stop. Literally. How's it going?
Oh, it's I've been better. I've been better. It's been honestly a rough couple days. I I don't know why but I'm always surprised. I'm always surprised at the level of inhumanity some people are capable of. So it's just been sucks, honestly.
Yep.
It's nothing compared to what the people in Israel and Palestine are going through right now. Thoughts and prayers to them, right? And I don't mean that in a condescending way or a ironic way. The people of Palestine and the people of Israel, it's going to be some bad days ahead. And I am honestly scared about where it will lead for both of the groups. So,
yeah, I don't think here's the thing. I think that anyone who makes strong statements of where this is going are absolute morons. Literally no one knows to what extent the retaliation is going to be from on the part of Israel. No one knows what the what further could happen. I mean, we've already seen Hezbollah enter the fray from the north, you know? So anyone who says they know what's going to happen is an absolute shyster, grifter, loser who is just out there to virtue signal for whichever side that you happen to be on to make you feel good or scared, depending on what their goal is.
I don't disagree. There are, however, things that we can see happening.
Yes.
Escalations that we can be worried that may happen. There are probabilities and possibilities that we can and should talk about, right?
Yeah, let me be like ultra clear. I just want to say, like, ultra clear, like anything, any like long term or like any kind of outcome from the totality of the events, anyone that's talking about those, like, of course, like if we have like facts on the ground that we receive, we can adjust like the possibilities to that. Sure. Yeah.
I get what you meant. I'm just trying to be clear myself, right?
Yeah.
And for example, we know that amongst the dead and amongst the captured, reportedly are American citizens.
That is, I was really worried about that. Like, I don't know, and maybe you know something about this. I don't know why you would know it, but do you know if there is like a situation where something bad happens to an American citizen and they have dual citizenship with the country that the bad thing happened in? Does that change? No okay, because there are a lot of dual citizens. Yeah,
honestly, I don't see why it would, especially again, if they're captured, right? If they're currently being held captive. I mean, look at the links we've gone through to free American citizens from Russia, who were in prison, right? Like, we are willing to go to a lot of lengths to get to help our citizens, and that's good, by the way. I think that's a good that we protect our own, right? But in this situation, how that will manifest, I don't know. I literally do not know. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be bad. But again, I don't know the exact nature of these things. I know we're moving an aircraft carrier into the region.
Yep.
I know that we are sending aid packages from Jordan to Israel. what what will come in the next few days, I think, will set the tone for a long time to come. Like, how measured will Netanyahu's response be? Probably not very, right? Like,
Knowing him, yeah.
yeah, it's going to be disproportional, I fear. And again, it's going to be something that we can't really, we'll have to condemn that too, right? Like,
I have a question for you on
go ahead.
that. So I was presented with something that was very, very interesting from someone that I consider very smart. There is the question of proportionality and what is a proportional response, given that, Hamas is a terrorist group. They're hiding themselves within a bunch of Palestinian, civilians. And then we have, Israel, one of the most technologically advanced militaries in the world. Now, proportionality, people think of direct death numbers.
No, it won't be no, that's retarded.
Yeah.
It won't be a 1-for-1. Like, honest, like, look, in Japan, right, during the World War II, we killed them 10-1, right?
Mhm.
It was a 10-1 death ratio where we killed 10 Japanese soldiers for every one American who died. Does that mean our response wasn't proportional? No, obviously not, right? And we're setting aside the nuke discussion for now,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
But just in the warfare, obviously it was proportional. Just because we had the technological advantage as well as being simply better at it doesn't mean our response was out of line or disproportional or nothing. And once again, people show this chart all the time of the amount of Palestinian civilians who died compared to the amount of Israeli civilians
Yeah,
who died,
injured in death,
which,
yeah.
yeah, injuries and death. Again, we have to remember, we have to keep in context that one, not only is Israeli in a much more powerful position, so and with much higher tech levels, so that's obviously going to happen, but also Hamas purposefully uses civilians as human shields, right? And so
Yeah.
obviously, if you were hiding behind women and children and other civilians, yes, the numbers are going to be higher. It doesn't make it good, right? It doesn't excuse it entirely because, again, we can talk about the horrific things Israeli does with its settlement programs and things like that. Those are not good. We can condemn those. It's easy to condemn those things. And
Yeah,
when
there's a
Israeli soldiers
million things.
assassinate,
Yeah.
they assassinate that reporter and things like that, that's horrific. That's condemnable too. But that doesn't mean we cheer on can I just rant for a little bit? I'm sorry.
No,
But
you're fine. I just wanted to bring up the one thing on the proportionality. Like,
mm,
people will point out that exact same graph that you were talking about. And you brought up part of what I was going to say, the fact that Israel is so much more technologically advanced than Hamas, right? Like, Hamas will shoot 500 rockets at Israel, and then Israel will respond with, like a dozen maybe, right? But the deaths will be very, very skewed towards, Palestinian civilians and Hamas people. And the reason for that is it's not because they're responding disproportionately, right? It's just that they have a much greater ability to defend themselves from a probably
yes,
disproportionate attack on them.
yes, you have to ask yourself, if Hamas had the technological ability and the manpower and the weaponry that Israel had, what would they do with that power towards Israel? We know the
Yeah.
answer. We saw the answer yesterday. We saw what would happen if they had the ability to. We saw what they would do. They would go in, they would target civilians, and they would kill them brutally, publicly. They would parade it around in social media. They would laugh about it. They would cheer about it. And dumbasses online would excuse their behavior. Well, you see, Israel really is the one who started this. Get out of here with that, right? We can condemn Israel too. Now's not the time. What are you doing, right? Like,
Well,
what are you doing?
Here's what I think. I think that you can simultaneously say, yeah, the reasons why this conflict is still ongoing has to do with both parties continuously shelling each other. You can talk about
Yes,
why
it's
Hamas
a
exists,
circle of violence.
right? Yeah, and but I think that to bring up in direct response to these attacks, that like, oh well, Israel is bad too. Yeah, dog, cool. We can agree on that. But then if they can't even after that, commit to saying like, yeah, terrorist actions by the Hamas, like if they try to justify it in any way, shape, or form, even if it's just like, oh well, I just think that this is to be expected. I don't care if it's expected. Should we condemn it? Can you condemn Hamas, right? And that's what I was having a major issue in your Discord earlier, right?
I need more than just that, though. I need more than just like, yeah, I condemn it. But let's talk about how Israel's bad, right? Like, that's also something we should avoid doing. It's a tacit, it's an implicit, it's literally like, we don't care, right? We don't care when it happens to Israel because in the back of their mind, they're thinking they deserve it, right?
Yep.
That is what is happening when people are quick, right? Quick because look, I know a lot of very professional, profoundly anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, who have criticized Netanyahu, who have criticized the Israel government for years and years, right? Thank goodness they had souls. And the first thing they did was they didn't say, well, Israel caused this mess. They didn't say anything about that. All they did was like, this is horrific. This is inexcusable. This is something we shouldn't tolerate. Bar none. That was their statement, right? They didn't try to couch it or defend it in terms or try to score dunks or try to excuse it at all, right? Do I think they're now suddenly pro-Israel? No, of course not. Of course not. But they're human and they have souls. But when you have people going out and an aristocracy, right? Did you see the tweet she made?
Yep. I saw Sunday's response.
Yes, where she's like, hey, these people just slaughtered and murdered a bunch of civilians, right? Them in the streets, right? And videotaped it. And they look like me. I'm from that same kind of group. People in Canada are celebrating this. Oh God, that's scary to me. And Sunday, the race baiter tries to make it into a race issue. Sunday, the apologist started saying, why are you scared, huh? It's just women it's happening to, right? And saying that, oh, they were waving Palestinian flags. They weren't waving Hamas flags. As again, what were they celebrating? What were they celebrating?
Hold on,
what do you think they were celebrating?
I must have missed a couple of these because some of these statements I'm not aware of. I know that he made fun of her for like her saying, I don't know if like these people will attack me, and he makes it into a race issue. But like the women stuff with him, I might need someone to DM that to me.
I'm being hyperbolic.
Oh, okay. Here's the thing. It's believable. Not only that it's Sunday, but just given the crazy shit that we've seen over the past 2 days, right? I mean, it's
like some people
possible.
Absolutely excused it, right? Absolutely, we're just murdering kids, right? You saw that tweet, like, oh, they're colonizer kids, so it doesn't matter, basically.
Or the tweet where the person said, like, oh, you guys are talking. Oh, that's the tweet that you're referencing, the one where they said, you guys are going to cry about during war. That's literally a part of war. And then the response was like, war without is like cereal without milk. Like, these people are like, they're pro all of a sudden. They're not only pro murder of civilians, they're also just like purely. Hold on, I can pull up that tweet, because if people don't fucking believe me, it's literally, I'll have to name search
and
myself.
You saw the Denims clip. I think you did.
Anyway, oh no, I hadn't seen it. I wanted to respond. I wanted to watch it live on stream.
Oh, I won't spoil it then. But it's crazy. Look, Twitter took down. So here's the timeline of how I engaged with this. I was up way too late the other night because I'm an insomniac, right? Couldn't sleep, and suddenly I saw the most horrific shit in my timeline. What the hell is happening, right? Horror after horror after horror of people being killed in brutal fashion, of being rounded up, people dying on the streets, etc. And I'm like, what is going on? And then we discovered what happened. Hamas attacked, etc., etc. Unfortunately, and I say unfortunately for a very important reason, Twitter took a lot of those videos down for the graphic nature.
Yeah.
Just because they were so horrific.
But now people are trying to call into question whether there even was. Which is insane.
Absolutely. That's why I think these things need to stay up. It's horrific to see. It's gross to see. No one wants to see it. But if we don't see it, you have people like, again, I won't spoil it. Okay, I will spoil it.
Oh yeah, it was
Denim's being like, well, they weren't actually people. Why are we lying?
Oh my God.
You have to keep these things up so people can see.
Do you want me to like redirect you to a
live
leaks thread? Like, what the is wrong with you? Like, yes, everyone is talking about like the German national who was at the music festival who got brutally murdered. Her arms and legs are broken and twisted into inhuman angles so that she could be shoved into the back of a pickup truck and paraded around like a dead deer that you're like showing off to your buddies. Like, it's actually the most disgusting videos I've ever seen. Like, I've never seen like so much snuff films in my life until like the past 2 years with the Ukraine war and now with this. But like there is a brutal up close nature to a lot of the films that are, or the videos that are coming out of Israel right now, that like if you see like war footage from Ukraine, like it's a bunch of soldiers like 90% of the time, and they're, you know, you'll see someone who has like their head blown off, right, or some shit like that. You'll see some like really disgusting, like actually, you know, dead human beings who got mutilated. But this is that, but up close with a crowd of people around it cheering Allahu Akbar, glory to God, or whatever the it is. God is good. And it's like, do I have to have sympathy for the Hamas people? I mean, like, you might have grown up in like terrible conditions, right? But I don't have that much sympathy for the Joker. I don't have that much sympathy for like any you know, bad guy in a movie who, you know, they show them growing up and their mom abused them.
Who we should have sympathy for, though, are the civilians who don't do all that shit, who are going to be wiped out now, unfortunately, because of like Hamas signed their death sentence. Hamas signed the people of Gaza's death sentence. That's what they did.
I want to know what the response is going to be. Of course, they're not going to say. I know that there are reports of there being a land invasion. So they're like going to enter with people on the ground and stuff. But like with Netanyahu in charge, you know, and given the nature of the attacks, and then also the general you know, there's a lot of civil discontent normally between Palestinians and Israelis. So like, I don't know what restraint can be achieved unless we have some people go in there and say like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to actually, you know, like, we're going to sanction you. We're the United States. We're going to sanction you. We're going to you over if you do some crazy shit there, right? Like, go in there, destroy Hamas, go for it. We don't like Hamas, like
root and branch. Hamas needs to go
ape shit on them, but reduce civilian casualties, because otherwise it will be like it, or I say it will be. I can see it certainly becoming a slaughter, you know.
And that's what I'm afraid of, right? That's what I'm afraid of. I don't think Netanyahu's going to show restraint. And it's going to be horrific, and it's just going to perpetuate things over and over and over again, right? Again, get rid of Hamas. Hamas needs to go. Go out there, take them from their homes, put them on trial, do what you need to do, right? That's right, just, that should happen. But the innocent civilians of the Gaza Strip don't deserve what's coming. They don't. And it's a horror. Hamas bears... again, why are they doing the bombing they're doing now? Because of Hamas, right?
Yep.
Why are they doing all this? Because of Hamas. And again, if you are out there in the streets waving a Palestinian flag right now, cheering it on, right? Cheering on Hamas's attack. And that's what you're doing, right? You are cheering on the murder
and 100%
of civilians. You should take some time, self-reflect, and you know, maybe make some better life choices. It's not okay to do that. It's absolutely not okay. Again, if someone was in the street, if you had people in the street right now, cheering, waving Israeli flags, saying, yeah, bomb them into the Stone Age, that's gross. That's horrific.
Yeah, I would also say the same thing.
You need to reflect on yourself as a human being. You shouldn't do that. That's gross. What are you doing? but we can't say the same when people do it with Palestine and Hamas, right? We can't say that same thing. Like, what is going on? Like, have you lost your minds?
I think
And
that
this is how
it's
it
a
feels like
yeah, go ahead.
it just feels like people lost their minds. That people
I
who would
know.
otherwise like woke scold, like they were more mad at you than they are at Hamas. They are more mad at your stupid ass takes on Twitter than they are at Hamas murdering, killing, and people. And it just shows where their priorities lie. Let's be real. It shows
Yeah.
where their priorities lie. And they don't care. I'm sorry. They
Oh, yeah,
don't
go ahead.
care. They don't care about what they say that they're going to care about, right? If you are sitting there and you are not full-throatedly, wholeheartedly condemning what Hamas did, then you don't care about human rights. You just want it to happen to the bad guys and want the good guys for it to not to happen, whoever you think the good guys and the bad guys are. I don't like, you're showing your whole ass, and we won't forget. I won't forget the people who did not, again, full-throatedly condemn this. I will not forget you.
I feel like there are a lot of people who don't understand the whole conflict, right? And if they're willing to listen to it, I'm like totally fine with explaining it and like, okay, well, you just had a misinformed take, not a bad take, right? You haven't really thought through these positions. But one thing, a continuing discourse in the space, the like decolonize, this is decolonial action, and they always say it doesn't involve murder. It never involves murder. But then all these same people, the exact same people, I'm not saying they're fans. I'm not saying, people who are aligned with them in some vague way. I'm saying the exact same people, they're saying, if you guys don't support Palestine through this, then you don't support decolonization. And like, you know what? I'm gonna say it. You know what? I think I've seen this trend over a couple of years, right? The past, like, I would say year and a half, maybe 2 years of a kind of like slowing down in the growth. I wouldn't say that it's declined very far, but I think that there's a slowdown in the growth of like socialists online, lefties online, and out in the world. Especially after 2020, like with all the shit that went on and people went out and protested, and then because they don't care about policy, nothing got done, and then they got disillusioned. I think that there's this slowdown, and I think that a lot of people are understandably kind of disgusted by what they're seeing from lefties right now. And we can only be so lucky that the lefties will actually make everyone hate them, right? Like, we could only be so goddamn lucky.
I can't speak to the numbers thing, right?
Yeah, I mean,
But
I
wanna
don't have a
push back
study on
little
this.
bit.
Yeah.
I want to push back a little bit against your like, oh, I can understand if they're just ignorant. I don't look. I can have a very ignorant, wrong take on Palestine and Israel, but like that's a lot different than like I'm just no amount of ignorance. There's just a base level of competence as a human being that you have to have, that when you see the photos, the images, the videos coming out of what Hamas did, to just being like, no, that's gross. No, that's bad. No, that's something I don't want. I don't stand with that. Like, I don't care how retarded you are. Just being a human being. That's what it means to be a human being. It's to see things like that, and even having like really messed up context, recognizing that no context justifies this. There is no context that justifies the murder of civilians. There is none. There is no context on the face of this earth that justifies what that happens.
Yeah, maybe I just have a bleeding heart for dumb people sometimes, when they don't mean.
You gotta look out for your own people. I know.
Yeah, but off. But but yeah, it's genuinely like some of the most, like, the fact that the responses that I'm seeing from, like, let's just take like random dumb on Twitter out of it, like from content creators, right? Like they want to talk about callous disregard, but then they want to like say the shit that they're saying about like the Israeli civilians, where they want to like try and mind pretzel their way out of these people being unarmed, literal civilians going around on their Saturday morning doing who the cares, right? Going out to McDonald's, just driving around, and then a Hamas militant just pops out and guns them down while they're driving down the street in their Toyota Corolla. Like, is this the evil settler that you want to talk about? Like, here's the take on violence that I have. There are things that freedom fighters can do that are probably the most defensible things. While all violence is bad, there are much like more peaceful ways to achieve things, right?
Sure.
When things break down, like the first thing off the top of my head is don't target civilians, right? Seems pretty easy.
That's
if
step
you
one.
right,
Right?
like, if you want to ingratiate yourself to other people who you want them to see your suffering, you can A, show them your suffering, and then 2, show them how displeased you are with the suffering by attacking, like, I don't know, military targets, right? But if you're going to go around, like, I have friends who are Israeli IRL, and they feel like Palestinians, unironically, and there are probably some, like in Hamas, that literally do want to eradicate Jewish people, not just the state of Israel, but Jewish people off the face of the earth, right? Yep. And when you have a terrorist group that's going around shooting at like mowing down people at bus stops, for driving down the street, for being at a music festival, and kidnapping like tons of women. Did you know that most of the like kidnapped civilians are young, attractive women from this music festival that they dragged back into Gaza? Like, you're not ingratiating yourself to anyone that might otherwise hear what the you have to say about the real problems that you have. It's actually disgusting. The defense of this shit, the looking the other way, like all of it is so unbelievable to me.
It's gross.
That it is gross. It's gross, and it needs to stop. And no amount of like pointing out the very real and very concerning and very disgusting crimes that people in the IDF have committed against Palestinians, right? No amount of pointing that out is going to justify the like just as abysmally disgusting murder of civilians on the other side. Like I have a lot more sympathy. I'm trying to think. There's been examples not outside of my lifetime of people of like resistance groups attacking governments, right? That is
they strike military targets, they strike governments, they strike infrastructure, they strike all the like. Look, Nelson Mandela, like, look at his comments on sabotage, right? They made sure that there was no one in the building, and they did their best to reduce civilian casualties and things when they enacted.
Lonerbox put out a tweet today that had his quote in there that talked about like why peaceful protests, why peaceful means of achieving these ends are the most desirable. And I thought that it was really good. I'll have to find the exact quote because I don't want to
find the exact quote. I don't know
let me
off
do
the top
it
of my
real
head.
quick.
But he absolutely talked about that. Like, again, like people keep asking me, right? Well, what else are they gonna do, right? What do you mean what else they're going to do? Well, the first thing you're not going to do is kill and murder children. That's the first thing you're not going to do. You just don't. And as soon as you do, you lose all moral high ground or respect, no matter what has happened to you. Nothing. There is nothing that anyone can do to you that ever justifies you going in, targeting and murdering children. That's just not going to be, that's not going to roll, gang. It's not going to fly. Yeah. And again, we're watching and we're seeing who is cheering this on or who simply is trying to run cover for these people. And we'll remember. So,
yeah. Okay. Here's the quote. And also, I just saw an actual like Jewish supremacist in my chat. So before he says anything, I'm going to let you know, Panda, we're still not going to dehumanize Palestinians as a whole. All right, like we've gone over this already. The Palestinians have like really, really bad things happening to them as well. But we're talking about the Hamas group. We're talking about Hezbollah, who's attacking from the north, right? So like, calm yourself, or I will just like I'll either ban you or
Yeah,
I'll
we
time
should
you out
not
for a week.
tolerate.
Yeah, I'm
We
not
should
gonna.
absolutely not tolerate people calling for like Gaza to be glassed and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
We shouldn't be tolerating that. That's genocidal. That's not
Yeah,
good.
and I'm
That,
very much against genocide, believe it or not.
yes.
So here's the quote.
Brave, stunning. Okay.
I love being brave and stunning. 4 forms of violence were possible. There is sabotage, there is guerrilla warfare, there is terrorism, and there is open revolution. We chose to adopt the first method. Sabotage did not involve loss of life, and it offered the best hope for future race relations. Bitterness would be kept to a minimum, and, if the policy bore fruit, democratic government could become a reality. Like, the people that they want to hold up, like, also, they do this with Martin Luther King too. They want to take these people who were like actual freedom fighters that actually achieved their goals, and then they complain about liberals whitewashing them, but they paint them as these bloodthirsty villains. Like, they want to say that Nelson Mandela was totally fine with decolonialization in the way that they talk about, where it's just murder white people, right? Murder Jews, murder Israelis, right? They want to do that to Martin Luther King, where like they want to say that he was totally on board with riots when all evidence to the contrary points to the contrary. It's just like, I feel like the where I think it comes from is a inability to understand where change actually does come from, and because of that, the frustration builds up, and they have to lash out in the most, aggressive of ways, and they support the most aggressive ways of fighting back possible, because that's the only thing that they think works, because they're not willing to put in the work for anything that actually will work. It's just like this recursive issue. You don't want to put in work, so the things that you want are never going to happen, and then because those things don't happen, you get more frustrated and you want to like burn down the system even more. And because you want to burn down the system even more, you don't want to engage with the real life politics, and like it's just recursive. And now we're at this point where we're again, like, we're going to harp on this a whole bunch because we don't like murder, but you're literally defending murder, and it's insane to me, as a liberal.
Absolutely.
May Allah
Again,
forgive
there's
me.
very mask off moment for a lot of people who will be the first to like, oh God, that's horrible, when something like when Israel kills that journalist. And it is, oh God, that's horrible. That's horrific. But when Hamas does something that these aren't equivalent. This is like 100,000 times worse. Hamas, what they did, 100,000 times worse. At a much, I think the death toll currently stands 600 dead civilians.
Oh,
250 at that music.
Yeah, I think it's well
alone.
above that now. One second, let me see.
Yeah, can you check that? It's
I always
hundreds. Hundreds. It's hundreds. I don't know if it's thousands yet, but
okay. This was it's the 8th. It was updated about 45 minutes ago. Okay, when I was listening to NPR earlier today, someone that was from the government said that there was like near 1,000. It says at least
600.
Yeah, this is from ABC. It says at least 700 people have died. Over 2,000 have been injured in Israel after rockets have fired from Gaza into Israel by Hamas. So, Palestine says 370 are dead, 2,200 are injured. So
in Gaza, so
yeah,
over 1,000 total. Right?
Yeah, and in the West Bank, it's like 11 people have been killed total.
Yeah, it's horrific. It's a horror. Okay. But yes, it's well, I had a point with this. My point is, right, that the scale is vastly more, right? And again, there's a big difference between civilian casualties as a circumstance of like collateral damage, which is bad, we should avoid it, versus specifically targeting civilians. These are not the same. These are not equivalent. One is far, far worse. than the other. Both are bad. Both are condemnable. One is hundreds of times worse. Again, Hamas, I want to make a very clear distinction between Hamas and Palestine because they're not the same, right? Hamas doing what they do, who are funded and backed by Iran,
Yep.
is they are using the Palestinian people's lives as pawns in their game. Iran is cheering. Iran is getting everything its heart desired out of this. And one must say, like,
well, they think that Iran is based to half of these, so it's crazy. I like, if you want to go on another rant, you're more than welcome to, but like, I feel like in terms of like an opening statement for what my position is, I've gotten it out there. What's really disappointing to me, I guess, is the people in the people who normally I can at least be chill with in like different discords saying some of the most crazy shit. Like, how the am I supposed to look? Like, number one, how am I supposed to look at you the same afterwards, right? Because like I do think that this shit is like ultra despicable. Like, it's not just like the picking of sides thing. It is the blatant, like, I close my eyes when they are presented with the fact that there are like serious, unbelievably like brutal, barbaric things happening right now, and it feels like the only reason that they defend it is, you know, Israel bad. Like, so that's disappointing, and it's also disappointing to try and, you know, give the caveats that I did at the beginning here, right? Like, obviously we recognize that the IDF does some really crazy, inhumane things. Like, they've been condemned by the UN. All right, like, this is no secret. We recognize this, right? But like, what are we going to? Is that going to be the main focus, or is it going to be the main focus of the people who are intentionally, willfully, and with like, it's not just like we're going to kill civilians. It's like we are going out there and we're going to kill as many civilians as we can, and we're going to kidnap them, and we're going to take dozens of hostages, and like, God knows what's going to happen to them. You know, like the level of brutality shown in the videos